Okay, so this is a little message for Vesak celebration in 2016. I was asked to give a message on Vesak, a small talk, and so this is that. And the noise that you will hear around me is because where I'm staying currently in Singapore, there's a school right next door, so the kids are all out there playing basketball. And it's also in a residential building here, so you must expect and anticipate a lot of noise around here. So, having said that, Vesak, what's the purpose of Vesak, or why do we celebrate Vesak? So the Vesak period is about celebrating the birth, death and the enlightenment of the Buddha. The teachings of the Buddha came down to us roughly 2600 years ago, and ever since that point in time, many people have benefited from the teaching of the Buddha, the teaching of morality, the teaching of meditation, the teaching of wisdom, which is not dependent upon belief as much as it is dependent upon a practice, a way of life, a way of living, which is in line with kindness, in line with compassion for all other beings, regardless of their belief or their predicament in life. So the Vesak period is a time when we can reflect upon the message of the Buddha, more so than the rituals and the rites which are around it. It's common to find places where you'll have the water pouring or burning of joss sticks and flowers and these kinds of things. And on a certain level, yes, that can bring the community together, and some Buddhist communities will find that this is a very important part of their Vesak celebration period. But in terms of the real message of the Buddha, it was more about the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And this is that if there's suffering, there's the first noble truth, or dissatisfaction, but there's a cause for dissatisfaction, and there's a way to end dissatisfaction, and that way to end it is the Noble Eightfold Path. So this is the key message that the Buddha left behind, his inheritance that he left behind for the monks to be the inheritors of, and the nuns to be the inheritors of, as well as the laymen and laywomen. So this is the basic component of all types of Buddhism, whether it's the Theravada, the Mahayana, or the Vajrayana, the three different types or forms of practice that can be found throughout the Buddhist world. So this is, it shows a depth and a variety as well. It's very similar in many ways to the Christian side of things, where you would have, the Lutherans and the Mormons and the Catholics, the Church of England, etc., etc. In some ways, Buddhism has replicated that kind of system or format where Buddhism moves into a country and people in that country adopt Buddhism, but or I should say, adopts the teaching of the Buddha, but it has to change in order to be in alignment with, or not to be too far away from, the local indigenous religions. So it's a case where a lot of these practices or rituals and rites are handed down from many hundreds of years ago, from the interaction between the Buddha's teaching and the local religions in that area. And because of those changes, sometimes we're not sure what is the Buddha's teaching anymore, what is his teaching as opposed to what is other religious beliefs or views at that period of time. So when we have something like a Vesak Day, of course, the Buddha doesn't say we should celebrate a Vesak Day. A Vesak Day is something which comes about from devotees, from the followers of the Buddha many hundreds of years after his death and his parinibbana. So we create these things as reminders of what the Buddha represented, as a reminder of what he taught. And this is the most important part to remember. No matter how many Buddha statues you might pour with water, or incense sticks you might burn, or flowers you may place on a shrine, or whatever, and these things are maybe what you would call the window dressing of the store display. Although the window dressing is important in getting our attention, we're actually interested in the gift or the product that's for sale. And luckily for us, the Buddha doesn't sell his teaching. He gives it to us open-handedly, and he says that. He says, I provide a teaching not with a closed fist, but with the open hand. So he doesn't give something at a price or at a cost, he just gives. And he says if it's something valuable, then it should be available for free. It should be not for charge, not held back on. So the Buddha doesn't teach in order to gain money. He never used money. He didn't have a wallet or a bank account or anything like this. So when we look at how he led his life, when we look at the example that he set, not just for the monastics but also for the lay people, this peace of mind, what is that about? What is peace? How do you define peace? So these kinds of things are the important messages, and remembering the Vesak period is actually about this. It is remembering those things in life which are the most important things in life. The development of wisdom, the development of peace, and good moral conduct. These are the three most important areas in our lives that we have to work on. And when you work on these three areas in your life, you'll find that many aspects of your life becomes easier and smoother. When you have a good moral basis, you find less people get into arguments with you. Or if they do, it's over trivial matters, not very important things. You find then, of course, that this leads to peace, quietness in the mind, enjoying your life, rather than struggling and fighting with others. You can be more at ease with the presence of other people or other beings, including the animals, that they don't find you a threat, or they're not fearful of you anymore. And when you're in that situation, of course, it's easier to develop friendship with others. It's easier to get along with others. It's easier to work with others. All these situations come about from a good moral basis. And with a good moral basis, of course, it's easier for us to meditate, for us to sit quietly and not have to do anything, and allow the mind to come to some rest, some peace. And with the peace as condition, we are able to see things as they really are. We can see more clearly how things are operating, because our mind isn't in turmoil. In the same way, it would be very hard to play a game of chess on a ship, on a cruise liner, when the waves are coming up and down in a big swell. If the ocean is dead flat because there's no wind blowing, then of course you can move the pieces on the board. You can see where they're all going, what their positions are. They're not shifting all the time and wobbling and falling over, as it will when there are big waves. So the big waves in this simile are all the activities that we carry on with in our life, and the moral disturbances are part of that wave creating format. The stillness of the water would be like the practice of the moral conduct, kindness and compassion, and peace naturally is the result of this. And of course we can see everything clearly on the board when it's not shaking to and from, obscuring our vision, so to speak. So I wish everybody well for your Vesak celebration. Sam had asked me about this, and I have delivered hopefully a message for you within good time.